Hi, I'm Ollie, a history and politics graduate from the University of Cambridge, and in this video I'm going to go through a guide to try and help those of you who are looking to apply for history and politics, or a politics related degree at Oxford or Cambridge, firstly decide exactly which subject, which course to apply for, and secondly, some key ways you can help prepare your application and some understanding of effectively what you need, what you're going to need to do if you apply for each particular subject. So we're going to start by having a look at what the courses we're talking about are, the A levels you need, the admissions test for each particular course, the written work requirements for each particular course, what you might expect in the interviews if you're applying for history versus history and politics versus HSPS and PPE, for example, and then looking at some key ways you can help prepare. So some super curriculars you can help prepare with, personal statements and how particularly to pitch them. I've got a much more detailed video on the channel looking at personal statements if you want to have a look at that as well, choosing between them, how some guiding questions to help you decide what admissions tutors are looking for, and really finish off by some kind of final tips and some key differences to look at in the table. Go to the Humanities Explained website if you're looking for more support with your application. We've got example personal statements for particular courses, particularly at Oxford or Cambridge in relation to humanities, and a place to sign up for some tutoring and support, one-to-one support to help you with these applications if that's something you're interested in. That's very flexible and personalised support based on exactly what you need. We don't get you to sign up to 5 or 6 lessons and have to pay for all of those in advance. If you want one lesson looking at your personal statement, that's completely fine. If you want more, that's also completely fine, and you just pay after each lesson. And we're also very specialised, so we'll match you up with someone who's successfully applied, and they're often on the course at Oxford or Cambridge, or have graduated from the course at Oxford or Cambridge for the specific course you're looking to apply for. So go to the Humanities Explained website and the first link in the description if that's something you're interested in. Also to find the PDF of this guide for free if that's something you want to kind of maybe print out or work through. But without further ado, let's get into it. So starting off by having a look at the courses we're talking about. The first of those is history, both Oxford and Cambridge. So both Oxford and Cambridge offer history courses and cover many of the same topics. They deep dive into the past across periods and regions. And there's an emphasis on sources, historiography, argument, and long-term change, including the use of historical methods. And across them, you can really specialise and look to dive into a particular area of history you're interested in, whether that might be modern history, global history, or ancient history, for example. History and politics at both Oxford and Cambridge combine history papers with political science and political theory. They're interdisciplinary. They link the history, the past events, to modern institutions and ideas, and you have to study both history and politics. The course at Cambridge is much newer and aims to look at how the two kind of really overlap and complement each other, whereas Oxford is a bit more of a joint on this. You do history and politics, but there is still interaction between them at Oxford. And there's politics. So there's no just politics course at Oxford or Cambridge, as I'm sure you found out. But at Oxford, politics isn't offered on its own, but it's as part of PPE, or as history and politics. And Cambridge is offered through, of course, history and politics, but also HSPS, human, social, and political sciences, which looked at anthropology, sociology, politics. But you can decide to then specialise after first year in politics specifically. These kind of political aspects focus more on political systems theory, comparative politics, international relations as well. In terms of what A levels you need, if you're applying for history, history A level expected, and essay-based subjects are also useful. English, classics, politics, for example. History and politics, history is kind of essential, strongly desired, and A levels such as politics, philosophy, and economics are helpful but not required. And in terms of these politics degrees, PPE or HSPS, for Oxford, PPE, maths A-level is strongly recommended because of the economics aspect of it. And a history or politics A-level is also very helpful. And for Cambridge HSPS, there's no specific subject required, but essay-based subjects like history and politics, sociology as well are highly valued. And maths can help a bit, but certainly isn't essential or necessarily desired. In terms of admissions tests, so for Oxford for 2025 entry and 2026 entry applying in 2025, there's now no longer a history admissions test. That's been removed for history and politics, and instead kind of there's effectively a selection is based on the written work and the interview, which were there in place anyway. PPE although you still need to sit the thinking skills assessment test. For Cambridge, history or history and politics, there are college-based assessments at interview stage, but there's no kind of big test to go along with that beforehand. And for HSPS, there's kind of a pre-interview written assessment, which is often essay-based and testing arguments and comprehension. In terms of written work, so for history, you're normally required to send in 2 history essays showing analysis and argument. Preferably, they should be teacher marked in the exam conditions, and that effectively means that they don't want you to write something way more than you could write A-level. They don't want 20 pages. Effectively, it should be something maybe written for your A-level, and it needs to be marked, and if possible, in exam conditions. For history and politics, again, 1 to 2 essays, likely to be 1 history, 1 politics, or philosophy or economics, dependent on the A-levels you do. Again, teacher marked and preferably in exam conditions. And politics, again, typically they're asking for 1 to 2 essays in essay-based subjects, but it doesn't have to be politics specific. In terms of what you can expect in the interview, so there is significant variation in the interviews based on the particular college you were to apply for, or Oxford or Cambridge. But some things you might see in your interviews. In history, you might be able to have a look at unseen texts or sources, and questions testing historical reasoning and argument structure. For history and politics, it'll be a bit of a mix for history style and politics style questions, but it might ask you to kind of bring them together, for example. So it might ask you about a historical period and how might that be different today, or what might that teach us about politics today, for example. Really looking at linking the two, particularly at Cambridge. For politics, they can be some like those we've just had a look at, but they could be more theoretical or abstract as well. PPE interviews often involve logical puzzles, ethics, or data. That's very much for the kind of philosophy and economics aspects, and HSPS interviews can range from analysing a political passage to debating international relations. Ultimately, there's a big range in what you can be asked, and there's only an extent to which you can prepare. The way you can prepare for these interviews is prepare what they're looking for in terms of how you consider things, how you learn things, how you answer, and then it's about adapting on the day. Again, as I mentioned, we can help you with that at Humanities Explained through some tutoring if that's something you're interested in, once you've been offered an interview. Some examples of questions here. So for politics, it might be like, what is democracy? What is politics? So some of the questions, some of these things you can think to help yourself prepare, and they often with all of these interviews lead you down a kind of line of reasoning and ask you to, okay, they'll question you and ask you to think about it in a different way, and now they'll ask you, is that really right? And effectively keep taking you effectively to your limit, and it will get you to a point where you're thinking, oh, I don't know, but you have to kind of really then think and what might be the answer. And that's where they're really testing your academic ability. History, it could be about a particular source, so that question there. History and politics, linking the two. How do revolutions challenge our understanding of democracy, past and present, for example? So very difficult questions. You're not going to be able to predict them. It's about kind of practicing the type of questions that come up, practicing yourself with those difficult questions, that reasoning, so that on the day you can adapt and be as effective as possible in what's going to come up. Again, we're going to do, before kind of interview stage of Oxford applications this year, we're going to do a much more detailed video on how to prepare for interviews. In terms of super curricular preparation, so in history, so for all of these, reading is really, really key. Books, academic texts. You're looking at historiography, primary sources, historical debates, any kind of historical reading and stuff you're interested in for history. Same with history and politics, but also political theory and any politics-related stuff. And that politics-related stuff for politics specifically is wider engagement with political ideas, current systems, comparative politics, reading political thinkers, major debates. So anything in these subjects that you're interested in. Effectively. This is by no means an exhaustive list, but rather some suggestions for entry points of pre-reading for each course, and these are based on what some of the colleges have recommended. You should also look at their reading lists on university and college websites, in particular kind of modules or courses you're interested in, and you can delve into some of that reading if you're looking for a place to find things, especially given the fact that many of these reading lists we're going to go through below, and university reading lists in general, continue to be dominated by the writing of Western white men, which excludes a wide range of other valuable perspectives on history and politics, and that's why you should also engage in kind of other areas rather than just looking at these reading lists, because you'll get a much broader understanding, a more valuable understanding of politics and history. And get used to looking at footnotes when reading, if a particular point interests you, and in that you can find another text, for example, that you can go and read. So we've got some reading lists here. These are the ones kind of suggested by some of the colleges at the universities, and these are good texts, but as I said, you can certainly get a more valuable and broader understanding of things. So feel free to pause the video or go to the PDF guide on the website to have a look at some of these. In terms of personal statement, as I mentioned at the start, I've got a much more kind of detailed, kind of 30-minute video going through the personal statement, how to prepare, how to pitch it for top universities in the UK for humanities personal statements, but some kind of ideas in history, emphasize your passion for the past, big themes, and engagement with sources. Of course, don't actually say the word passion, just you're showing rather than telling, trying to show how you've got that passion and show how you've engaged with history and been really interested. You can include engagement with historiography there, for example, and what history is, why it's important, and how it might be different to studying different subjects. You want to balance history and politics in your personal statement for history and politics, show why you want the interdisciplinary approach. Why have you chosen history and politics rather than just history or just politics? And that's important for Oxford as well as for Cambridge. And for politics, show comfort with abstraction and real-world application. For PPE, make it clear your curiosity about all three elements, not just politics. And for HSPS, explain why you want to study that particular course. Why human, social, and political sciences. Why sociology along with politics, and a bit of a broader approach to it rather than just a political approach to it. So guiding questions, if you're kind of choosing between them and looking to decide, do you want to focus most on history with the option of a wide range of periods, then go for history. If you want to combine the past and present, you find that really interesting, including through political theory and a history of political thought. History and politics is really good, particularly at Cambridge for history of political thought. Do you want to study politics itself, systems, theories, institutions, international relations? And there's obviously a very broad, and that links into history when you're studying politics as well, but that might be where HSPS is best for you, or PPE. If you enjoy maths and logic as well and economics, then PPE is probably your best. And if you prefer a broader first year before specialising, that's to some extent the case with all of these courses, particularly history and politics and HSPS, but HSPS in particular is very good for that. Admissions tutors are looking for evidence that you can handle sources, think flexibly, and build nuanced arguments for history, the ability to kind of combine history and politics for politics, and abstract thinking, conceptual clarity, analytical curiosity for politics. But for all of these, you should have these skills for all of them, and curiosity is really, really important for all of them. We've kind of gone through this, but kind of got the key differences in one table if you want to pause and have a look at it, and some final key tips then. I think about the method. What is history? What does it mean to study history rather than politics? Why are you doing that? What is the method of history? How do we know about the past? History, that's like historiography. Politics, engaging with historiography, for example. Politics, how do societies organise? What is power? What is politics? What is democracy, for example, and why does it matter? Think about those and a combination of both history and politics. Don't over-focus on current affairs. They're useful, but always think about linking into the academics, the theory, and the history. And try mock interviews potentially in each style, and you'll quickly see which feels more natural. Ultimately, pick history if you like the past. Pick politics if your main drive is understanding power, institutions, and theory, and pick history and politics if you're interested in both and where they overlap. As I mentioned at the start, go to the Humanities Explained website for more support, including kind of specific one-to-one support with interview preparation, with personal statements for applications to these Oxford subjects. We're specialised, we'll match you up with a very good tutor who's effectively, successfully applied for the degree at the university you're looking to apply for. And we're very flexible and personalised, as I mentioned at the start. Let me know if you've got any comments or questions in the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next video.